Hi, and welcome to Eye Openers. Thank you guys so much for joining us. If it weren't for the audience, I guess I would just be talking to myself, but that's a show I enjoy as well. But no, we're so glad to have you guys here listening in and gaining the insights you need to better run your business and enjoy your life because your business should not run your life. You should be in charge of it. You should be making those decisions and really creating exactly what you want for yourself. And that's exactly why I have really special guests on with us, guests that have been through this themselves, have considered how to make their business run differently so that they can enjoy more of their life too. So if that sounds like you are in exactly the right place joining us for Eye Openers today. So I want to kick us off with the first eye opener, which is what are you drinking today? Daniel, thanks so much for joining us and let us know what is your beverage of choice?
Yeah, it's I've got a cup of coffee here. That's usually it's got all kinds of things in it in the morning, all the good health stuff. But by midday, it's just a nice cup of black coffee.
Okay, great. So tell me, what do you put in it for health stuff in the morning?
Yeah, the collagen, do that. I actually do a little bit of honey rather than sugar. I don't know if it makes any difference, but do that. And then I believe it's like a MCT oil type deal.
Yes,
You can
like
put that on.
bulletproof?
Yeah, yep, the bulletproof, and then a little bit of unsalted butter as well. So put that all in there, and I'm trying to kind of wean off of caffeine because I've got a triathlon coming up in a few months. So I'm slowly. I used to be like a 3 or 4 cup guy, and then I'm down to about 1 cup a day right now, and I still feel really good.
All right, good for you. Yeah, I'll never forget the first time I told somebody that I put butter in my coffee, they thought I was crazy.
Yeah, I same, and I actually had to bring like a huge thermos to work one time. I had to like put like it ended up being like a stick of butter in like this humongous because everyone's like, I'm like, I'll bring some in, I'll let you guys try it, and they're like, oh, this is pretty good. I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I wouldn't drink it, but it tasted like crap.
That's great. And so I do some of that stuff too and really love I know for me, I definitely feel like it helps with the focus in the morning. But like you, I've also become really conscious of how
Mhm.
much caffeine I'm drinking. So you guys know I love coffee. I call it my first like eye opener or insight of the day. Always helps hone me in. But at the same time, too much of a good thing is too much of a good thing. So um, a lot of people were talking about like during COVID, noticing how much coffee they were having and getting jittery and like maybe it wasn't, it was creating more anxiety for them, whatever. I've never gotten to that point, but I do know that that maybe switching to water is definitely helpful for my body. So how has it impacted your training? What have you noticed and why are you making changes in that front?
Yeah, the largest benefit for me, it's not so much for the current training. It's on race day. I'm training for an Ironman.
Yeah.
My goal is to do this one in 12 hours. So you're starting at 7 a.m. and hopefully I'm done around 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock at night. But with that, they give you all these goo packets, and these health things, and they have caffeine in them. So if I was just doing my day-to-day stuff and I went and did this thing, the caffeine wouldn't have as much of an impact on me. So the hope is, and which I've experienced in the past, is you wean off and then to the point where about a month before the race day, you're not drinking any caffeine. And then not to get too far in details, but a really good cup of coffee in the morning kind of clears things out, so you're not having to stop for a bathroom break in the middle of the race. And then those goo packets that have caffeine in them are good too. So I've also noticed, on your point, Brittany, that drinking too much caffeine actually causes, like, I only talk about in kids, but it really causes like that midday crash. And there's nothing worse when you're trying to have a productive day, when you're like, I just want to take a nap so bad. And by slowly weaning off caffeine, I've actually gotten to the point where I'm feeling more energetic longer throughout the day.
Yeah, completely. There is a point where it totally can be detrimental to, or like your system is just shot from like too much
Mm-hmm.
caffeine, like you were talking about. Somebody who I really respect and love to learn from is Dr. Andrew Huberman. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but Huberman Lab out of Stanford. He's a neuroscientist, and he talks about this. Like, coffee is the biggest scam because actually, what's happening in your body can like make you more tired if you drink too much. And
Mm-hmm.
for me to like really understand the neuroscience of that, it was just like it hit home. It was a total eye opener for me.
Sure.
That okay, I need to have some boundaries. Or I love coffee, but I need to have some good healthy boundaries around it because it won't be serving me if I don't. So
Most
yeah,
definitely.
big time there. Most of us do not drink enough water, so I have a hard stop with coffee around 11, and then and fully water after that. So now that we've got that all ironed out, when's your race? Just so I can
Yeah,
keep.
it's in Coeur d'Alene on June 25th.
Okay, very cool. Right, so that's coming up 2 months.
Yes.
Well, good luck to you on that.
Thank you.
But so as we talk about, well, I think this is a good transition because one thing you mentioned was that we were going to talk about how you've transitioned to making more space for training for Ironmans and triathlons. And so we were going to talk with the audience about how you went from being really a small business owner type mindset and how you got started, which is the last episode that we recorded together. If you guys are curious how he doubled his revenue in one day, really popular episode. So we wanted to have you back to talk about this next level of transition to really running your business more like a CEO. But before we dive into that, can you give us like the 5 bullet points on like who is Daniel and why should I be listening? Like, where do you come from? Who are you?
Yeah, I grew up and still live in Minnesota. I'm one of 6 kids. Grew up in an entrepreneurship family where we had nothing at certain points, and to the point where my parents have a very, very successful small business today. I live in the West Metro of Minneapolis on a little hobby farm. I have a wife, 2 kids, 2 horses, 2 dogs, 2 cats, and about 17 or 18 chickens running around the backyard. So really enjoy work-life balance.
That's awesome. Thank you for giving us that. It's just kind of like nice to know, like you're a normal guy, you're having your
Yeah.
life, because I think so many times, especially in this space about business owners, CEOs, right? We see these people and we see their books or their podcasts and it just feels unattainable. Like I always use Gary Vee as an example, Gary Vaynerchuk, like loud out there, you see his stuff everywhere, but it's just kind of like, yeah, that's great for Gary. When am I going to have this like $150 million business or wherever he's at now? But this show is so focused on showing you great leaders and great business owners who you might not read about in the newspaper or magazines, but are really out there creating the life that's most important for them and letting the business really serve their lifestyle, not the other way around. So talk with me about, if you guys are curious, we know how Daniel got started from episode 1, but what kind of stages or what were you noticing in your business that you realized, oh, wow, this is another inflection point. I'm going to have to change how I'm showing up and leading in order to be successful at this next stage?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was for me, like I say I want to be as lazy as possible, and I don't think that's quite the right word because I don't think of myself as a lazy person, but I think I want to enable other people to do things. And when there's a repetitive task, and I think what it is you keep on handing off like little things, and pretty soon they get bigger and bigger, and you're building trust with your team members and getting to the point even where I don't run payroll at my company anymore. All these things that are like big things that at a certain point when you start your business, you're like, there's no way anyone else can do that. At one point, I felt like I was the only one who could do an estimate at my company for a homeowner. I haven't done an estimate in like 4 years. So it's just these little things of building trust and getting to the point where you let someone like do something because maybe you're out of town that week or whatever, and they did it way better than you do it because they're actually focused on it. They don't have, all these other little things going on in your mind. So the biggest thing was just realizing that I'm not really that special. There's a lot of things that other people could do, and arguably they could do significantly better than I'm currently doing them.
Yeah, that is such an important one. I can't even tell you how many times I hear like, oh, well, I've got to be the person, like people want to work with me or they call because of me. I think that's something actually for people to better understand. Like, how do you manage when somebody calls your business and they called because of you or they were referred, well, I want, Daniel to come out and be the one to service my home because I heard he's great. How do you manage that when a customer kind of like, it's getting us out of that belief that it has to be us. So what was that like for you?
Yeah, that was a really that's very interesting you asked that, because that was a very, like, I'd say mentally challenging thing, because you want to make, as a small business owner especially, you want to make everyone happy, and like this customer might be a really big customer, things like that. And what I got to the point of saying is like, I have a team in place that can do this significantly better than I can. And so with that, like if someone emails, like if you call our office, it's going to be pretty rare like that I'm going to be answering the phone. It maybe happens once a year. I'm not the guy to do it. But if it does, like someone emails me and they want my services, I respond back by CCing our office and say, sounds great. I've CC'd our office to get you the place you need to be, and they'll answer any questions you might have. And so just like delegating that immediately rather than being like, and I just get pulled off that email train then pretty quick. And sometimes I'll ask like in a week or two, but I've gotten to the point where I just have an office manager that does such a great job. Like after you follow it up, like on 10 people and all 10 were like, Daniel, yeah, I got it scheduled. It's like, okay, I don't need to keep following up on this stuff. So I think the biggest thing is setting the expectation for your clients and letting them know that you don't want me out there. I'm not the best person to come and do your routine maintenance or your air duct cleaning or your estimate. I have a team in place that excels at this, and you're gonna get a better customer experience. And if they are really stuck on that, then I'll turn the script on them. I say, I tell you what, will you do me a favor? Will you be a secret shopper for me and let me know how they did? Because now they feel like they're still like getting a one up thing if they really need that. But also, we all have customers that are A, B customers, and we also have C, D, and F customers that you maybe want to get rid of. And if you can't service them on a scalable level, it might be time to maybe, a different company might be a better fit for them.
What a great point. Yeah. So that kind of puts the power back in your hands. Like if you can't service them at a scalable level, at a level where you can bring other people in, where you don't have to be doing every single job, then it's time to reassess. Like, is this what you should be offering, or is that who you should be serving?
For sure.
Point. So you got into that group, you use that mindset transition, you have great team members. Sounds like training would be a big part of that.
Mm-hmm.
So how did that look when you brought in your first few hires to really duplicate yourself? What were some things that were really successful in terms of training? Because I am hearing really bad stories right now about the labor market, whatever, but can't find good help. And I think so much of that is about leadership and training.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what it is today compared to what it was in the beginning is completely shifted. In the very beginning, I mean, I was out there. I was elbow deep in an air duct trying to, clean this and clean that. I was doing everything for my company, and bringing that first person on, it was a lot of just side by side work. Here's why I do this, and here's the reason why. And so you're just explaining everything. You just keep on talking. Like, you're not talking about, hey, what are you doing this weekend? I mean, yeah, there's a time and place for that, but we're on the job site. It's constantly like, here's another common problem that I find. And then eventually getting to the point for employee 2 through 5 or whatever it may be, that you're actually writing down this documentation of the who, why, what, when, and how on everything, every single thing you do. The way that we pull into someone's driveway, the way you knock on the door, the fact that you take 5 steps backwards, all those things are documented for that process, so that a gentleman or gal who's hired into that role, who I may not even be, I'm not even part of the hiring process anymore. I'm not part of the training process. I know it's getting done because my operations manager runs a training meeting every single morning, and every single one of these hires goes through it. And then they take a written test that, again, like, they have to pass, but I'm not putting them through any of these things to make sure that they know the answers to these things that they were trained in on.
Wow, that's a really great system. And so I think the point that I really heard there was it's just constant iteration, right? Like you're constantly looking at, how am I training? How can I make these improvements for them? Also for the company wide, right? And so that's what's so important. I feel like the mindset is often, okay, well, just tell me what I need to do. It's almost adopting that growth mindset and that learning mindset of, hey, it's not like getting to the destination. It's really this journey. And if we can adopt this iterative approach, then the more successful you'll be, right? Because what do we know? Things are going to change. Like, this wouldn't be the game of entrepreneurship if everything stayed the same. We have to adapt. We have to innovate. And that's part of it. So just staying tapped in and constantly looking at your systems. So, we chatted a bit before this to hear about what you're up to. And it sounded like there were some significant moments where you were able to pause and reflect on what was going on in your business to help you achieve that next level of growth. Can you walk me through, like, maybe what happened to kind of give you that pause and say, whoa, I need to take a look at this? Or was it like a goal setting, or, what kind of first created that pause? What do you do in those reflective pauses? And then what does it create? So I'll try to remind you of those 3 parts there.
Yeah. So for us, we were trying to grow really, really fast, and it got to the point where I'm just not having fun. And the top line looks really awesome, but I probably would have been better off working at McDonald's for a year at a certain point, and it's like, you look back and it's not quite that bad because you're building an asset and you're building a company, all that's great. But it's like, man, you're not really having fun. And so we really looked, we had expanded to 5 owner-owned locations across the country, and it was becoming very difficult. We had 52 employees, and I'm not the type of person to micromanage. And like, even when I naturally like am forced to, I absolutely hate it. I don't do a good job at it. And And so it got to the point where we just kind of started pulling back and just really evaluating, like, if this isn't making money and it's not bringing, joy or happiness into like the company and into my life, we just have to get rid of it. Like, it's not worth it. And so we just kind of started like it felt very organic to just kind of be like, hey, this, when your whole team gets behind the fact that if it's not working, it's not bringing money, it's not profitable, let's get rid of this. And everyone's like, yeah, we agree. It got really easy just to start like scratching little things off. And pretty soon, like, you're selling a few vehicles, and like, luckily, I think it'll be the only time in my life we're making money on vehicles, appreciating asset of 2021, 2022. But we leaned out, and we're just going to focus on the things that really are very profitable for our business, and we all enjoy doing. And by coming together as a team and doing that, it freed up so much of my time. I went from working probably 55, 60-hour weeks, which some people are like, that's nothing. And you're right. But for me, I'm very focused on my young family and things like that. And to now the point on Kura Home as a whole, it's maybe 5 to 15 hours a week that I'm like giving it. Like, I'm basically responding to a few emails and answering a few phone calls of like one-off things, but I really got it. And we're more profitable than we have ever been by delegating these tasks, really focusing on, we're just going to do what makes money for the company. And it's higher customer satisfaction. Employees are sticking around longer. Everyone's happier. The bottom line looks beautiful. It's just a significantly better spot.
Amazing. So I really don't want to gloss over any of that, because that's exactly why people are here right now to learn how you did that. So how did you get that information? By understanding what was most profitable, what was most valuable to customers, to then, focus on that. How did you get that information?
Yeah, I think it's first you're diving into your P&L, and for us, we get our P&L on a monthly basis. And I love numbers, and even for me, sometimes I'm like, I just don't want to dive into this today. But you really got to like dive into. I think most people use QuickBooks, like diving into like, are these numbers correct? And we're still like catching little things that's like, hey, this $15 a month, subscription or whatever isn't needed. We could get rid of it, and it adds up at the end of the year. And so, like, when I say we leaned out, I mean like we really were like, we're not going to let any fluff go. So diving into that, and then when you see a red flag on your P&L, diving deeper into that system and be like, okay, I need the manager to tell me, like, why is this crew only doing X amount per day when my expectation is that they could be doing this? And often they have like 3 or 4 excuses, and it's like, okay, well, here's the expectation. How can I help you get your team to that spot? But at the end of the day, like, you have to do it. I'm not going to be the one, like, I'm not going to come out here and be doing it for you, because it's your department. And so you enable people to do that. So you just keep on diving deeper and deeper and deeper. And you basically have to be an investigator in your own company. When the P&L looks odd, you can't just ignore it and be like, oh, I hope it'll fix itself by next month. Like, you have to fix things immediately, and then like take notes, say like, what's going on? What did we change? And then you look at it again the next month and be like, is this better or not? And you keep on slashing things.
Good point. I get this question all the time, and I think you'll have a good answer. What do you look at? So when people like, I say, like, what's your dashboard? Like, we need to be checking into your dashboard. You need to understand these things. And then I get this question, well, what should be on my dashboard? So I'm curious, you've mentioned the P&L, which that's profit and loss if you're not sure, or it's like looking at your QuickBooks statement to understand your accounts receivable, accounts payable, like exactly what your cash flow looks like. But people also believe, I've been in different schools of thought where the cash is a lag indicator. Like, that's a result of things that have already happened. Should you know where your cash is? Absolutely. You need to make payroll, right? But beyond that, is there anything else that you're looking at on like kind of like a dashboard way to track how your company's doing?
I do. I get a weekly email on Monday morning, and it's giving me a ton of data points from the previous week, but they're all summarized. So it's daily sales, so I can see the trends even down to that. And it's broken down into our 2 services of routine maintenance and air duct cleaning. It's telling me callbacks. If there was a cancellation, if someone canceled, it tells me that they canceled their service and why, especially for our reoccurring clients. We have 800 of them. And so if someone cancels, like, we need to see it. Like, if they moved, or like one of the spouses decided to be a stay-at-home parent, or they lost their job, that's one thing. But if they're canceling because of quality, that's giving you a trigger to jump into that and talk to that manager. It's telling me if employees were sick or were late, like some of these key top things. It's like, okay, if everyone was on time, which we have bonus structures for, what were the sales like? Were there callbacks? Like some of these key things that's like, okay, if all of a sudden 1 week we have 5 callbacks, that's a huge issue because we should be having like 1 or 2 callbacks a month. So just some of these little key indicators that's like on Monday morning or at the bat, I'm getting an email usually by 10 a.m. that's telling me basically everything's good to go for the previous week. And if it's not, my executive assistant sends that to me. And usually I can just reply to her and say, here's the concerning things. Please talk to that person and let me know what they say.
Is that manually compiled? Does she create that for you, or is that a software that you're using?
At this time, it is manually compiled because it's so basic that, just these basic things. And it would be really hard for us with our CRM, even though it's one of like the top CRM systems for home service industries in the country. I think it would be really tricky to get that to be automatically filled in. And each department puts in a few things. So I'd say each one of my managers probably spends 10 to 15 minutes a week sending that. And it's a very, very valuable time spent for me.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's awesome. So I hear, the P&L. So we're looking at money in and out, and where, how can we lean that? Where should we amplify by looking at where people are spending money? And then you're also looking at quality control metrics.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on if you have a service or a product, looking at those different touch points that might impact a customer's likelihood to buy again or continue if it's a subscription service. So those are just some key metrics that we're looking at, and I'm just summarizing for the audience in case that those are different. Okay, so let's say we talked about you have a metric, it's not favorable, it gets highlighted, you're sending that out and asking your EA to look into it or let this person know.
Mm-hmm.
How are you making bigger changes? Let's say okay, that's one little red flag. If a few people were late on this team or whatever, that gets managed. But let's talk about bigger business strategy stuff. What did you notice, and how did you glean that data and then change your direction?
Yeah, I think for us, it's like even though you're running this business, and I think like at the end of the day, we all need to be in the business to run a profitable business. So for me, it's finding out like what are customers happy with, and are we making money doing it? And then even though like I'd love to say like, hey, we're going to pull on 200 more customers this year. Well, that's really awesome. But did you pull on 3 or 4 last week? Because if you didn't, like, we're not going to hit our goals. And so really breaking those down into like 90-day, hey, what's our 5, 3, 1 year goal? Can we break that down into a 90-day increment? And then what do we have to do each week to hit that goal? And you have to make it so simple of like whether either you did it, yes or no. And that's the same for our services. Like either you change the filter or you did it, yes or no. When we do like muddy things, like such as caulking, like it's so subjective because Brittany, you might say like the caulking at your house looks awesome. And I walk in and I'm like, this is way below our standards, or it could be worse and be vice versa. And you're the client. So you have to have like these yes or no things. Like, are you hitting your goals or not? And for us, what we've really found out, like, because we were growing really fast, like we were like doubling in size and the money wasn't quite getting to the bottom line. So it's like, hey, maybe if we grow at like 40%, we would still be running a 20% profit or whatever your profit goal is. And everyone's happy because I'm not financially stressed as a business owner. We're making payroll. There's 3 or 4 weeks worth of payroll in the payroll account. Like this is great. Everyone's happy as can be. So that's what we really have focused on as a team of breaking this down. What does each person need to do each week in order for this company to be running smoothly?
Right. So I recognized a few things in there. Are you running like there's a program called the 12-week year where it breaks it down like that into quarters, and then each week what all needs to be done. That's a great tool if people have access to that. Are you running EOS?
We're running on EOS, and we have an implementer too, which is like super important. You have to have, if you want to be doing more next year at this time than you're doing right now, like you need to have a coach. Like you have to have an implementer. And this is coming from someone who like, I think I'm one of the most like the hardest person on myself. I feel like I'm very, very self-motivated, and I'm like, oh, I don't need this person. And then when it came down to it, I'm like, I don't want to be wondering in 1 year where I could have been if I wouldn't have hired this person. And like worst case scenario, we do like a couple months here and we break off. But I mean, that was in 2018. And I still meet with this person every single week, and they kick my butt. Like this person is like pushing me to the max to do big things, but it's like they're pushing me to get out of my comfort zone and delegate some of these tasks. They're pushing me to get invested in real estate and buy a commercial building and all this stuff that is like there's no way. If you told me a year ago that I was doing this today, I would have been like, that's impossible. But now it's like we're walking through this path, and it's like you have someone side by side with you, and it just makes it a lot easier. No matter where you're at in your, I think the top CEOs in the world, I think, should have some sort of coach.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. You guys, I promise I did not pay him to
Yeah.
say that. Obviously and then one thing I tell people to ask if you're interviewing for a coach, ask them if they have their own coach, because as a coach, I pay my own person to get me to do the exact same things you just spoke about. It's not about, do I know that these are the things I should be doing? Yes, but it's like going to the gym and doing your own thing or having a trainer standing there. There's this level of performance and accountability, even as a driven person, that it changes the way that you show up. It changes the outcomes that you can achieve, right? It helps you see your blind spots. I mean, there are just so many benefits to it. So I really love that you shared that, and that you are getting so much benefit from your coach. So that is fantastic. But yeah, really, even I work with people in funded startups or bootstrap startups or small business owners. I even have some CEOs that I serve that are work at public companies, and it doesn't end. Just like he said, that the top CEOs in the world have coaches that they work with, because that's how you continue to grow and develop and reach new edges for yourself. We won't willingly put ourselves in places that are uncomfortable. We can only do that so much. And so a coach really helps you ride that line while making sure you're surrounded with the best people with the right resources and keeping that mindset in the right place too. So thanks for sharing that. We talked a bit about how maybe things have changed in your business, like a change in model to licensing, and that was actually supported by you thinking about your lifestyle. So let's talk about how you really thought about kind of your family first, or the life you want to be living first, and then shaped your business to match that, to make that possible.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of goes back to some of that, like we're trying to grow, and I'm a very competitive person. So I'm wanting to grow, and how can we grow without me having to like fly all across the country to show Guy how to clean an air duct, which I didn't want. And so we looked at a few different options, the corporate owned expansion, that wasn't the right thing for us. We thought about doing franchising, and ultimately what we found is like most people, if they were going to go start like a business, they probably have already. So they just wanted to bolt it on to their business. So they're already a plumber, maybe your HVAC or whatever it might be. And they're saying, we love the home service industry, but we want and need recurring revenue in our business. And so for us today, we've got 800 clients. Our average client pays us about $1,600 per year on that side. Then we have about 48% of our business is one-time services. But with that, you have all these people calling me from across the country being like, I wish, like, could I just pay you to train me how to do this? And we're like, well, I don't really know, like, what do you even charge? So anyways, we're like, well, why don't we just offer this as a license? So we've started selling licenses. We've our first gentleman just purchased one in Seattle. He's calling it his own company. It's not Kura Home, but if you look at his website, my website, you'd be like, someone's doing something similar here. So it's really similar. He has very similar business card, very similar door hangers, all that stuff. And he came to Minnesota, trained with us for a week, and now we meet once a week for about a half hour, and I can do that from the comfort of my home, and I'm coaching and mentoring him to build his business. And I think the real need out there, Brittany, which is why I'm sure why you have a business and a podcast. There's so many people out there. Like we have a few short-term rentals. And the one guy, I finally had to tell him, I'm like, dude, you haven't invoiced me for like 6 months. You're always telling me how like busy you are and all this stuff. And like, there's so many little things that there's so many people out there that I don't think they realize there's like, that you have a great business, you have a great service. And if you would just change a few little things, it's so much better on the other side of the fence. And so that's really out of the passion of wanting to help people and then add recurring revenue to your business. That's why we really started to offer that licensing concept.
I love that. That is such a smart way to look at it. And I love hearing your thought process and how you think these things through, how you look at what the pros and the cons of like franchising versus corporate versus licensing, and instead of just moving towards the thing with the most dollars, you made the choice that ultimately serves your lifestyle the best, and also your mission, right? Like, I want to help people. There's so many awesome service providers out there. There's so many people who are so great at the thing that they do, the technical skill set, yet they're just missing a few things. If they just made a few of those changes, like you said, they'd be so successful. I find that this is also in a mindset too, where let's say you've got an awesome plumber And he knows he's the best on the team. He can get things done so quickly, so profitable for the company. What does he do? He breaks off and starts his own plumbing company, right? Because he knows he can make more money. Instead of making that guy rich, he's going to try to help himself. And that's great. And I love people who do that. They really like jump into the entrepreneurial pool, so to speak. However, there is this idea of like getting this freedom, but people often aren't willing to create the systems and processes that actually create freedom. So I find that there's often a lot of resistance because it's like, no, I just came from this company with rules and policies and standards and all of that. And there is this kind of like natural, like, no, I just rebelled against that. I'm not going to go sign up for that. But if you don't, you are going to be in those 80-hour weeks. You're going to be reinventing the wheel every single day under the name of like freedom and saying that, no, I'm not going to do that because that's where I came from. The truth is that structure, systems, processes, standard operating procedures, these things are the very thing that create that level of freedom. That's how you're able to work, like you said, like 5 hours on Kura Home because you've built all these things for that company so that you can deploy those or somebody else can stand in and like do the operating procedure that you created. So that's just like an important mindset that I keep running into. Do you see that as well?
Yeah, we've experienced that here, Brittany. What's so interesting about the mindset of like hating all the rules and things like that is that if you're a business owner, you're already in a minority. Like you think differently than most people. And what I found with a lot of people that work at my company is they actually prefer to know what the boundary is. Like, what is the rule? What is the speed limit? Like, I want to know what I'm supposed to be doing and what's right and what's wrong. And for a lot of entrepreneurs, it like you might be like, well, you just know, like, just do what's right, but for a lot of people, like, they want to know, like, they want to be trained in, like, when this happens, here's the right thing to do. And so with that, when we've tried to be like really casual or relaxed with our rules, our guys are actually worse off and they're not as happy as they are when we have consistent training meetings. They're frequently reminded of here's the way that Daniel, as the owner, wants it to be done. Everyone's happier. They're like, okay, great. I know I'm doing a good job because I just heard at this morning's meeting, this is the right way to do it. So it's tricky to have that mindset as an entrepreneur that people are going to be happier with more rules, but they want to know what platform am I playing in? Where's the rules? What's the line that I should be following?
That's a really great point. And then that's often where like an EOS implementer will bring me in or a systems process coach will bring me in because my specialty is people. And you're right. Like it's only natural for us, like as humans, the way that our brain works is to think that we're having the same experience as this other person over here. But it's true that entrepreneurs work very differently. They're motivated by different things. And so you absolutely cannot assume that the people on your team or in your business have that same kind of common sense understanding or they're motivated by the same things. They absolutely are not. And so once I introduce that concept, we can then create a structure for better understanding their motivations, incentive systems, right? Like things to drive performance for team members. But it's cracking through that is the hardest part, like breaking that idea, which is the way our brain is set up to assume we're similar to other people. You are not. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're listening to this podcast, you are not the same as other people. And let that be your advantage. But pay attention to it because what works for you is not going to be the same system that works for somebody else. And that's okay because if we had too many entrepreneurs running around, you wouldn't have team members. You need really awesome employees who are so great at following your directions, taking something and running with it, right? Like that's who we need, but they need different systems. So thanks for sharing that. Daniel, if someone wants their air ducts clean or if they are interested in adding this on to their home services business, how could they reach you? So what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, you can find more information about our company at kurahome.com. That's KURAHOME.com. If you want to connect with me, I do manage my own LinkedIn, and you can search Daniel Felt and you find me on there. I'm connected with Brittany, so you should come up as a mutual connection.
Definitely. Yeah. And if you guys struggle at all, just let me know. We're going to get all that information into the notes for the show. And if you're watching this in a post-production way, you'll definitely see it down there at the bottom. It is always a pleasure to speak with you. You know, you really have you got your stuff together there. And I love hearing all of that, like all that happens behind the scenes to get you there, because I think people just assume, oh, well, he's just like, he's got it, you know, like I
Yeah.
don't know. But it's built day after day,
Hmm.
you know, hour after hour, just paying attention. So
Most
thanks
definitely.
for all the insights you shared, all the eye-opening moments that we can all learn from.
Thank you.
And maybe in a year, we'll be doing this again and we'll hear about the next level of success that you've reached, and we can all learn from you there.
I'm looking
Guys,
forward to it.
time. I really appreciate everybody tuning in. It's this audience that keeps me motivated and creating new episodes and having special guests join us like Daniel. Please, anywhere you see this, share with your friends, share with an entrepreneur who needs some extra support or some extra eye-opening moments to get them through. And it has been a pleasure to share this info with you. Thanks again.